let's talk about policing and crime, because Danny Shaw is here. He's a policing and crime commentator, former advisor to Yvette Cooper when she was Shadow Home Secretary, because we learned yesterday that the police and the prison service are up in arms because basically they haven't got enough room to house the people that they've convicted of rioting and convicted of other offences during the rioting period, whether they be, posts on social media or threats or whatever it was. They're going to have to let people go from prisons. They had Operation, what was it called, Red Dawn or something yesterday, in order to let go of a load of people in prisons. Nobody's quite sure who's coming out, but what they need to do is make sure they get the right people in. This morning, The Sun's got a story saying that 2 mums with 11 children between them have been locked up after they rampaged through the streets during rioting in Hartlepool. So, let's find out from Danny where this is all going. Danny, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to be here.
Yeah, good to talk to you. It looks as though, there's a bit of a problem here just with the prison population, apart from anything else, because I'm not clear, and I don't know whether you are, on who they've chosen to release, how you qualify to be released, early, in order to make room for the people who they want to put in. How are they actually making that work?
OK, so it is a bit confusing because there are various measures that are coming in to ease the prison population crisis. This latest measure, Operation Early Dawn, is basically about suspects who've been arrested by police. They're in police custody and they've been charged by police. And as you know, Mike, if you're in police custody and you're charged by police, it's required that you appear before magistrates, that you appear in court as soon as possible, right. Normally that day or within a day. Right. And so what is going to happen is that an assessment will be made early in the morning, hence Operation Early Dawn, which prisons can take prisoners who may appear in court and then be remanded by magistrates custody. So is there room? Let's say you've got police stations in Leeds. You've got Leeds Prison is the prison that normally receives prisoners who've been remanded into custody, but Leeds Prison's only got 5 places. So there'll be an assessment which of the 5 people must be remanded into custody that day because they're dangerous or they present a risk. The others will either stay in the police station for perhaps a day or so, or they'll be released on police bail. So it's a kind of it's a triage process. It's almost, when you go to A&E and you're seen straight away by a nurse who says, are you about to die? Right. Your leg falling off, right? You better go and see a doctor straight away. Or is it just a bit of a, you've got a sore back, it can wait a few hours.
No, exactly right. And how are they choosing who gets released from the prison in order to make space for those, say, 5 places that they've got? Is that, what's that based on?
OK, so that's coming in on September the 10th. That's another emergency measure that's coming in September and October. Prisoners who would be released at the halfway point of their sentence, 50% of their sentence, instead they'll be released after serving 40% of their sentence, and that will apply to, it won't apply to sex offenders, it won't apply to terrorists, it won't apply to people serving life or anything like that. But it will apply, and it won't apply to anyone serving a domestic abuse-related offence, but it will apply to prisoners serving 4 years or less and non-violent offenders. But I think there will be some prisoners who have been convicted of minor assaults, right, who will be released early at the 40% mark. It'll start on September the 10th. There'll be a big tranche of prisoners released that day, and then in October, another big tranche will be released, and then it will sort of become the norm after that for the next 18 months.
Right. And the risk, of course, politically, is that if anybody comes out of prison having been released early and then commits some kind of horrendous crime, that's going to reflect really badly, is it not, on the Home Secretary and perhaps on the Prime Minister as well? Because it depends, I suppose, on who's picking the people that are being released. I take your point that, they're not releasing, seriously dangerous criminals. However, anyone who's in prison, it could be considered to be dangerous in one way, shape or form.
Yeah, I mean, you make a very good point. The likelihood is, the expectation is that some of the prisoners who released at the 40% mark rather than 50% mark will be sent back to prison because of their behaviour, because they breach their licence conditions, or because they reoffend. That is the expectation. It is bound to happen. The question is will they commit a really serious offence that ends up, on the front pages of the papers and everyone's talking about it? That is a risk. It has happened before with other early release schemes, and it obviously will be a real political problem. Certainly for the Labour government, the longer we go on into the Labour government. At the moment, I think you can absolutely legitimately say these are problems of the Conservatives making that they didn't address properly during 14 years. But, as the months tick by, Labour will have to take that responsibility themselves.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, the justice system has been screwed, really, for the last probably as long as I can remember, maybe 10 years. The fact that I talk to lawyers, I talk to barristers, I talk to police, I talk to, people in the community, and they all say that it's not fit for purpose, that, people who should be locked up don't get locked up, people who should be classed as recidivist criminals sometimes haven't done jail time at all, just because there really isn't space for them, and we don't have enough prisons. And I mean, I don't know what the Labour Party policy is on building more prisons. The Tories said they would. They're supposed to be, I think, 2 or 3 under construction, but they're not going to be ready anytime soon, right?
So the Tories' policy was we're going to build an extra 20,000 places. They delivered 6,000. Labour's policy going into the election was we will deliver the places that the Tories didn't deliver. So they will build the extra 14,000 places, but that's not really going to be enough to solve this problem. You can carry on building prison places, and we need more prison places, and we need modern prisons that aren't crumbling and falling to bits. But at the same time, there are so many prisoners in there who really shouldn't be in custody, either because they've committed really minor offences or because they have mental health problems and they would be better served getting mental health treatment. And that really needs to be addressed, I think, in Labour's sentencing review. One bit in the manifesto said Labour would set up a sentencing review. I think that's the vehicle on which we have to have a real look at this and make sure that the people who need to be in prison go to prison and are in prison for a long time and get the sort of the punishment, the rehabilitation that's necessary. And there will be some prisoners who shouldn't be there, and there need to be alternatives for them.
Absolutely right. Danny, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Policing and crime commentator Danny Shaw there.